And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR each and every Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. on your Middle Georgia sports leader, TV 38. Guys, make sure you check us out as well on Twitter at Sports Wrap TV 38. That's at Sports Wrap TV 38. Or you can give us a call by calling 478-345-1500. That's 478-345-1500, where you can get into the discussion. Guys, I've got my Braves sweatshirt on right now. Our Atlanta Braves make some big moves over this week. Looks like they've revamped this the Braves organization and the entire roster. There are only 12 members of the 25-man roster that started for the Atlanta Braves this past year. They get Justin Upton from the Arizona Diamondbacks and Chris Johnson, third baseman, for 5 Atlanta Braves players, including Randall Delgado and Martin Prado. Big move for our Atlanta Braves that will actually unite Justin Upton with his older brother, 25-year-old Justin Upton, with his 28-year-old brother, B.J. Upton, who signed a $72.5 million contract for 5 seasons in the offseason with our Atlanta Braves. It's going to help the Braves, obviously, with a lot of speed. You'll probably have one of the Upton brothers in left and one in center. You'll have Jason Hayward in right field. And, guys, this is going to be an outstanding lineup. And Chris Johnson probably competing for that third base position as well. All right. We'll talk about the Braves a little bit later on, but first, guys, I wanted to talk about local high school athletics, GISA, GHSA action, and big news coming out of the GISA. Mount DeSales High School, that's Mount DeSales High School, private school out of Macon, Georgia, has decided this past week, their board of trustees has decided to move from GISA action to GHSA action, similar to what we saw at FPD in 2009. And this is going to have a big impact on what Westfield does. Tatnall Square Academy loses Barney Hester as their head coach, 11 state championships with Coach Hester. Stratford Academy right now, these teams and these local teams in the local area are going to have some issues right now with only 12 football playing teams in GISA action. They're going to have to do a lot of travel. We got a chance to talk to Coach Robert Slocum over at Mount DeSales High School about the move that was made earlier this week. Here's what he had to say. Alongside longtime Mount DeSales head football coach and athletic director, Coach Robert Slocum. Coach, decision comes down this past Thursday. Looks like Mount DeSales is going to kind of follow the lead a little bit of what FPD did a few years ago, head to the GHSA for athletics. Give us a little bit of insight on what obviously came and brought this decision about.
Well, you know, we've been talking about it for years. We've looked at it for 6 years or more, and we've decided that this move was probably best for Mount DeSales and our student body.
Well, and one of the questions I would like to ask you, obviously, is just a few years ago, there were 16 teams that qualified for the playoffs, obviously, in GISA in Class 3A. There are only now 12 schools left in it. Did it have anything to kind of do a little bit with excessive travel? I mean, it's gotten to a point, it seems like, where you guys have to travel upwards of 120, 180 miles round trip to compete in a game each week.
Travel was definitely one of the equations, and you're exactly right. You know, the top-tier AAA schools in GISA has been dwindling over the years, and, we kind of sit back and hoping that the numbers would increase, but that never happened. And it looks like we're just going to continue with the pattern of, the bigger schools leaving and going Georgia High School Association.
You've had an opportunity as well to put several young men. Obviously, you had the Swain train, Abrams come through. You had a lot of talent come through here over the last few years. This looks like it could obviously, you've had the kind of talent that people would say, a lot of people like to contend GISA, GHSA, no comparison. With the move the local Macon School FPD did a few years ago in 2009, they've proven to do well. They've been, a playoff contender over the last couple years. Where do you see the Mount DeSales Cavaliers obviously falling into those ranks?
Well, I think it's going to take some adjusting, but our kids are like any other kids. We'll do what we need to do as coaches to try to get them prepared, and hopefully our kids will step up to the challenge and do what they need to do to win games.
Do you see the Mount DeSales kind of leading kind of being another leading the charge situation where we see kind of a mass exodus, so to speak, of other teams locally here from the Macon Middle Georgia area that are GISA competitors possibly taking flight and leaving the GISA just based on the same situations that you've kind of talked about, looking at the expenses that it costs. I mean, literally Stratford, Westfield, Tatnall, those schools left. And then you got, obviously, Tatnall loses Coach Barney Hester, who's been over there, who gave them 11 state championships. They lose him as well. Do you see other schools possibly following?
I think it's a distinct possibility. I know for a fact that, we've all studied this for years and we're watching and Thursday night, the Mountain DeSales Board of Trustees did what they thought was best for Mountain DeSales and, Tatnall and Stratford. They'll have to do the same thing.
This shouldn't be a big adjustment for Mount DeSales that much, considering the fact that Mount DeSales competed from 61 to 1980 in the GHSA, decided to move in 1980, obviously for the last 33 years, to the GISA. This might be a little bit of a easier transition than it was for some schools.
Yeah, it's, like I said, we have some coaches on staff that were part of that period when we in the Georgia High School Association, as players, the coaches, and so it's really not new to us in that sense. But of course there'll be some adjustments because we've been in this league for 30 years, so we just hope make a smooth transition. But again, this won't be anything that's real mysterious to us.
Well, with your leadership and obviously with the backing that you have from your trustees, I'm sure it won't be a tough transition for you. Coach Robert Slocum here, Mount DeSales Cavaliers Athletic Director and Head Football Coach. Coach, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you, and good luck on all your endeavors.
All right, thank you.
All right, that was Coach Robert Slocum from Mount DeSales High School. Coach Slocum obviously has been there for quite some time, has put a number of great kids out. There's going to be some decisions having to be made in the GISA and GISA action. All right, coming up next, Craig laying down the law son will join me. We'll talk a little Georgia Bulldog football recruiting right here on the Sports Wrap, TV 38 WRWR. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR. I'm your host, Leland Ragin, and you guys can follow me on Twitter at Leland Ragin, or you can follow us, the show here, at Sports Wrap TV 38. That's at Sports Wrap TV 38, alongside Craig Lawson, who will give us a little college analysis. We do a little high school and college basketball, football, anything and everything. We also want to thank the great people over at Flint Energies. Obviously, for this segment, we're going to do our Georgia Bulldogs recruiting segment, where we talk a little bit about what's going on with any and everything Georgia Bulldogs football right now, and some local recruiting, and just a little bit of college football in general right now. Craig, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. With signing day fast approaching, and there's a lot of guys that are hanging in the balance to the University of Georgia, and I think, if they could pull these guys in, it could really vault them up the rankings as far as the recruiting class goes.
Well, we got several. Here's the thing. They've got so many, obviously, recruits right now.
Right.
You're talking about they've got, right now, they have 13 early enrollees right now.
Right.
For any of you guys that don't know that, these are kids that have qualified and eligible, have been qualified for to graduate at the high school level. They've basically taken all the core classes they need to take here in Middle Georgia and Macon. I think it's 28 core classes. So these guys have completed that and have enrolled into the University of Georgia, and are getting the opportunity to get in there and get their grades going a little bit early as well.
And the significance of that is you can count 10 of those guys towards last year's class. So Georgia could sign up to 35 recruits for this class coming up, because they had a light class last year, so that could be big, because there's a lot of roles that need to be filled with guys that are leaving, especially on defense. Well,
out of those early enrollees, obviously you have to pull up the names of Reggie Wilkerson, cornerback, 5'11", 175, out of Central Florida. He's a 4-star recruit. Wide receiver, 6 foot 192, out of Goose Creek, South Carolina, a 4-star recruit. They're getting some guys that are, and then obviously Bryce Ramsey, who didn't have a great Under Armour All-American game, but
he's got some time to grow.
He's got some time to grow. He's a nice little 6 foot 397 pound out of Kingsland. But I'm concerned with the fact that Georgia is actually, other schools are raiding the state of Georgia and getting Georgia's top recruits.
Whoa.
And while Georgia's going outside and getting recruits from other areas, kind of like we saw them go up to North Carolina and get Gurley and Marshall.
Yeah, which, that's never a bad thing. You would like to see them kind of bat down the hatches a little bit. Garner is gone now. I don't think Garner necessarily did the best job recruiting and getting all the kids in state to come to Georgia. Like Alabama, if you're good in Alabama, you're probably going to Alabama. Auburn might get some kids, but for the most part, Alabama keeps their kids. But I mean, looking at John Atkins is a guy, 6'4", 300 pounds. Kwame Githers has gone now. He's a defensive tackle, so that was a huge pickup. We didn't know if he's going to qualify academically. Was able to get in. We got Trey Matthews and Brandon Langley as defensive backs. Georgia's got a slew of defensive backs coming in because they did not have a lot of depth. Shaq Wiggins is committed now. He said he's on board, so I'm really excited about the depth that Georgia's potentially going to bring in.
Well, and one of the big things for me, obviously, is they also bring in, it looks like they've got commitments from Uriah LeMay, Christian LeMay's brother, at wide receiver. Does that mean that they're looking at possibly keeping, that LeMay is possibly looking at staying there at Georgia? Or, I told you this before, I think LeMay is leaving. I think he'll leave and go somewhere else because I don't think he's going to ever touch the field here on the Georgia campus and during the game. I'll
tell you what, though, out of all the kids that Georgia has behind Aaron Murray, the person that I'm most impressed with what they did in high school is Christian LeMay. And he didn't play his senior year, but he was unstoppable in North Carolina up at Charlotte his junior year when they won the state championship by about 40 points, I believe. Now, how does North Carolina football compare to Georgia football? Sometimes it's just kind of hard to weigh that out. But I think he'll get his shot. If Hudson Mason gets his year next year, I think that LeMay will potentially have the opportunity to step into that role. He's a kid that can run the ball. He's athletic. We need to put some size on and get better with his decision making. But I like his chances. And but we could potentially see LeMay, maybe his younger brother, flip
commit and go somewhere else and play with his brother. I think that's possible.
It's possible.
I think that's what we may end up seeing happen. We'll gauge that and see kind of where his brother on February the 6th, I believe, is signing day.
Right.
We'll get an opportunity to see where some of these guys commit to and what impacts they will have. How about the fact, and we talked about Kwame Gathers and John Jenkins both leaving, going to the NFL, leaving huge. That's 800 pounds of gaping hole in the middle of the Georgia. I know I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I mean,
close,
but it's close to it with pads and helmet and everything else on it. It leaves a huge gaping hole in the middle of that 3-4 defense for Todd Grantham. But you mentioned John Atkins. The Falcons, I said the Falcons, Lord. The Georgia Bulldogs have reached back again to Mississippi Gulf Coast, where they got Big John Jenkins from, and where Alabama got Terrence Mount Cody from. And they've gone out there and gotten a defensive lineman, Chris Mays, 6'4", 330 pounds, to shore up the middle. And one of the things I'm excited about is I've got a nice little kid, local kid here, and I don't want to mention his name to throw him or the coaching staff under the bus or anything before they commit to go wherever they're going. But Mississippi Gulf Coast, I got them interested in another big local defensive tackle at 6'8", 355 pounds here locally.
Bring him on back around.
Mississippi Gulf Coast, we send him out there and hopefully be able to bring him back maybe when he gets his academics together. But it's exciting to see them get the players these players. We didn't see this, after the Marcus Strouds and the Richard Seymours and these guys like that. We didn't see the big defensive tackles. Everybody went down to my cousin Charles Johnson, where you saw these guys basically, they were 265, 270 pounds.
Yeah, well, that's the difference between the 3-4 and the 4-3 scheme. You got to have that big nose tackle. And you're right, Chris Mays is a Georgia guy. He goes out to Mississippi Gulf Coast, and now he's back. And you like that 330 pounds. You want to get that weight up there. And also, looking at guys like Toby Johnson from Kansas, Hutchinson Community College, who's 310 pounds. He's 6'4". Now, he hadn't committed yet, and he's got knee problems. He's got an ACL tear he's going to have to rehab.
Yeah. You got DeAndre Johnson out of Noonan, 6'3", 310. Again, I like what I'm seeing out of Georgia. They are basically going out and recruiting and getting commitments, and these are all committees or early enrollees.
Right.
So these people pretty much, now these commitments, some of these commitment guys could always change their commitments and where they're going to go. But I don't see a lot of these players changing. And again, we're seeing, they go to Mississippi Gulf Coast and get another 6'2", 185 pound cornerback out of Mississippi Gulf Coast.
That guy is a ball hawk. He picks off passes.
Kennard Johnson, right, exactly. And they go, again, getting junior college kids, Holmes Community College, where they get wide receiver Jonathan
6'5",
Rumps.
215.
Yeah.
Dude.
He's a four-star recruit.
He's not super fast, but you're talking about a possession receiver. They're losing Marlon Brown this year. somebody who can turn around, 10, 15 yards down the field and just go up and get it, that kid can do it. He's got a lot of size. I like that.
You got Fluker, who's coming out of Shaquille Fluker, safety, 6'1", 200 pounds, out of East Mississippi Community College.
Oh, and he's a hitter. Oh, watching the film on that guy, he will knock your head off.
And see, that's the thing about it is they're getting guys that are bringing a certain level of SEC talent out of the high school and junior college ranks as well. Now, here's the thing: notable targets that they haven't committed to. Let's run these down real quick.
And this is what excites me. This is really what could put Georgia over the top. You got Montravius Adams. We talked about him a lot, out of Dooley County. Clemson and Georgia, those are the two front runners. He's actually coming to Georgia this weekend. Now, he's 6'4", 310, so another potential, for the defensive tackle position. Reuben Foster, #1 inside linebacker. If they could get him to switch from Auburn. And then you got Alvin Kamara, the tailback. They need depth at tailback. Devondre Seymour, Richard Seymour's son, actually.
Wow.
So he'll probably have to go to prep school for a year. But he's 6'6", 300 pounds, offensive tackle. So Georgia would like to try and get him academically. Leonard Mead Tunsil, if he comes to Georgia, will probably start at left tackle for the first game next year. 6'6", 295 pounds, out of Florida. And then from Miami, Matthew Thomas, the #1 ranked outside linebacker in the nation. If Georgia could swing him, they're not a front runner right now, but he's visiting this weekend, so it's always good.
All right, Georgia's Ken Malcolm, former running back with Georgia, goes and leaves, and he's headed to Southern Illinois as well. And then we'll also, obviously, we wanted to mention the fact that Middle Tennessee State and Florida Atlantic University are both leaving the Sun Belt, headed to Conference USA, so a little bit more alignment going on in college football.
Hard to keep up with those alignments, but it keeps happening.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll come back right here on the Sports Wrap TV 38 WRWR, where Craig and I'll come back a little bit and talk about this. We'll dig into this Manti Te'o situation a little bit right here on the Sports Wrap TV 38 WRWR. We'll be back.
One of the enduring stories of Notre Dame's undefeated regular season this past fall involved the tragic events surrounding Manti Te'o.
But it's not, Lisa, a crime to lie to journalists, is it?
The story, looked like it was made for TV back in the fall, and now it appears that a good part of it was made up.
Notre Dame's star linebacker Manti Te'o has spoken out for the first time.
Now to Manti Te'o, the football star at the heart of that bizarre hoax, sitting down for his first on-camera interview with ABC News anchor Katie Couric.
And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR. Joining me alongside me right now, Craig Lawson. Is going to join me from Patriot Sports. Obviously, we want to make sure you guys get into the discussion and become a big part of the show by giving us a call at 345-1500. That's 345-1500. Or you can follow us on Twitter at SportsWrapTV38, and me personally at Leland Ragin. That's LelandRagin on Twitter as well. I don't know. Do you have a Twitter handle?
I do. Craig _Lawson.
Craig _Lawson.
Pretty easy.
We're gonna get you a theme song, man. I told Brad we're gonna have to get you a nice little theme song to bring you out.
Looking forward to it.
Pretty cool. I know. I hope you are. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But we got a lot of interesting things to talk about here. First and foremost, I want to touch on this Manti Te'o thing. This situation with the girlfriend who he was been dating for 3 years, who was supposedly had died, who he's been sending flowers to, he's had this long relationship with. This thing has mushroomed out of control, and my question for you is this: what, if anything, does he owe the general public in an explanation of this situation? I don't know that he owes anybody anything.
That I actually agree with you on that. The only problem that I have with it is he potentially, I think, won some awards that he might not have won if it wasn't for this adversity that he had overcome. Now, his grandmother did die, so that is adversity to overcome.
That's real.
That's real.
So, okay, his grandmother was real. Okay.
They pulled records on that. She existed. She died. And I really think, we saw the Katie Couric interview, and I thought it was kind of fishy. There were some things that didn't add up when it said that, he knew about it the whole time, or he didn't know about it the whole time. But it's come out that he actually did kind of keep the ruse going a little bit after he got the call that it was fake.
But he knew about it September the 12th. He knew about this whole situation.
No, it was December. She died on September the 12th, supposedly, but it was December the 8th, or December the 8th, I believe, or maybe the 5th, when it's the 6th, when he got a phone call that the girl was actually, it was the same voice that he knew to be Lene Kekua, was trying to convince him that she faked her death to get away from drug dealers and that she was still alive. And that's the point where he was like, all right, fool me once or twice or however many times, shame on me. But this time, that's too crazy.
3 years, man.
3 years.
You never had any physical contact.
Right.
Anything other than you meet someone on Twitter, you see a couple pictures of this person, you like them, you have conversations. I guess they had phone conversations and things like that. But my question is, if you're someone who's pulling this hoax on the other end, you go through this ruse for 3 years. You basically get some chick out there to basically fake to be Kukua for 3 years and to fool this guy. Why?
I don't know, man. People just get
What's
caught
the
up
game?
in stuff. I don't know. That's a great question. I don't understand why you would want to do it. And you get all this media attention for it. And, I think you just kind of, maybe it starts off as kind of a little joke and then it just snowballs. It is.
Here's the thing. We've heard situations that have come out of camps that out of different sanctions and different media outlets. Some media outlets are saying that Te'o had a part of it because he was doing it to build his Heisman Trophy resume and be able to get his candidacy, get people to feel sorry for him. You've had people that, like you said, for the other awards, you've had people come out and say that he was homosexual and he was trying to hide that fact. Who knows what this situation is? But my whole point is the fact that I don't think he owes the general public any kind of explanation. But the problem and the concern is, here's a guy who's a potential NFL first-round draft choice that now, from what I've been hearing, and I talked to a couple executives with a couple different franchises that have the ability to draft him early on in the draft, that have moved away from it because they don't know whether this guy's going to be truthful or honest with them or not, and they're worried about something following bad press, so to speak, following them to the NFL.
I think that you definitely want to vet his mentality. If you've been fooled for 3 years on an online relationship, I mean, first of all, if he didn't know about it, he had to be super embarrassed when he found out. First of all, heartbroken, felt like a fool. I mean, I know he had to feel like a fool, and so I kind of understand. But yeah, if you're an NFL team, I think all GMs and all draft scouts, they're definitely going to want to search this thing out and make sure that it's not going to be an issue going forward that they're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, I look at this. If you're a team like the Atlanta Falcons who need a linebacker, do you take this guy in the draft?
Just depends on where. I mean,
at 30, number 30, the Falcons are going to be picking either 29 or 30 in this year's draft. Would you take him in this year?
Girlfriend or no? After that national championship game and really leading up to that national championship game, I'm not touching Te'o in the first round. I just don't think he's a first round talent, personally. But and especially with this stuff coming out, I'm not doing it. To me, second, maybe early second round would be the earliest I would take him.
Well, I agree with you 100%. I think he got totally embarrassed in the national championship game.
Yeah.
Totally ill prepared. I think once he got thumped in the mouth a couple times by those big offensive linemen and trying to tackle guys like like Lacey and Yeldon. I think that he basically was like, you know what, this is a little bit much for me.
Yeah.
So and therein lies another big situation we look at. I wanted to ask you this question. We're going to stay. Let's stay in this. Since we talked about Alabama running backs, let's stay in the state of Alabama for a minute. How about the fact that it looks like they are in a situation right now where they could pull Georgia's #1 running back recruit to replace? Looks like Eddie Lacy has decided he's going into the NFL draft, and they're going to want to try to bring somebody in and replace him. And is that a good way to kind of go to? Is it Kamara, I believe?
Alvin Kamara is the kid out of Norcross High School. We've talked about him. He's actually visiting Georgia this weekend. He was at Alabama last weekend for their national championship party.
Wow. That's impressive.
It is. I mean,
it's got to be impressive.
Yeah,
man.
It definitely is. And I think, Alabama thinks they've got him. So we'll just have to see. Georgia's going to have to pull some tricks out of their sleeve. But one thing about Alabama is they've already got Derrick Henry, Alti Tenpenny, and Tyron Jones committed for next year, plus T.J. Yeldon is still going to be there. So they're going to have to commit.
2 more years, yeah.
Right. So he was just a freshman last year.
That's right.
So Georgia can basically tell Kamara, like, you'll be the number 3 guy immediately, because they only have Brandon Harton, and they got A.J. Turman coming in, who is a young freshman, and he's probably a 2-3-star recruit. Not as good, not as highly touted as Kamara. So Kamara will have a good shot to get some time. So they're basically telling
Kamara, you could be the 3rd string instead of the 5th string,
or have a shot for who knows how good he could be.
Right, because he possibly could push Marshall down, because
never know.
everybody coming in, Marshall was the most highly recruited running back coming into this season. And Gurley being the guy who they were just expecting him to be a short yardage guy, then he turned around and Gurley was the guy ripping off chunks of yards and able to run between tackles, outside the tackles. And Marshall was the guy that kind of spelled him a few times. So that's an open invitation. And when you think about it, you think about the fact that all the talent at running back that Georgia has had over the last few years and how it's kind of gone away at other. It's just amazing when you look back on it. Also, in sports, we wanted to talk quickly about how about the impressive part. You got a new up-and-comer coming out right now, young, talented tennis player, Sloane Phillips, beats Serena Williams earlier this week in the Australian Open. That was impressive. When I was watching it, and I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, I swore when I first saw it, I thought she was playing her sister Venus, and it was surprising to me.
That's what I thought. I watched it earlier this week as well, and the way that she was just able to hold serve, first of all, and she was able to return everything. Now, Venus was injured. She injured herself in the middle of the match, but the way that, they played best 2 out of 3, she hung in there. She was confident, and, we might be seeing a changing of the guard here. The Williams sisters have been around for a while, over a decade now.
Serena's 32. Well, excuse me, Serena's 30 years old and Venus is 33 years old. I mean, they're getting old. And they're really old for tennis.
Right, and Stevens is 19. So, we might be saying that, and the build is very similar. And the tenacity, I was really impressed with this young lady, and, I wish her the best of luck going forward.
It's going to be exciting to see evolve, obviously, to see a possible transition from probably the most powerful and most successful tennis tandem in Venus and Serena Williams in tennis history to another young, and I'm going to just say this, to another young African-American who could probably come in and carry the torch and grab the torch for them as well. All right, guys, we'll take a quick commercial break and we'll come back with Brandon Evans will join me, where we'll actually get a chance to talk about the NFC and AFC championship games and do our analysis and throw back on those right here on the Sports Wrap, TV 38 WRWR. We'll be back. Back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR. I'm your host, Leland Ragin, alongside Patriot Sports, Brandon Evans. Guys, we want to do a little recap of the NFC Championship game. Our Atlanta Falcons lose 28-24 to the San Francisco 49ers in a tough loss this past week. Give us your insights on this Falcons game real quick.
Well, in a nutshell, I think it wasn't one big thing that made the Falcons lose the game. I think it was the culmination of many things, maybe some non-pass interference calls, some personal foul penalties, some adjustments that weren't made at halftime, and really just the lack of the Falcons putting their foot on the throat of their opponent and refusing to let them up once they build a big lead. That would be my synopsis of the game.
Well, mentioning a big lead, Falcons come out in the first quarter of the game, have an unbelievable start to this game. They go drive down the field, Matt Ryan 7 of 8 for 70-plus yards and a touchdown, 30-yard strike to Julio Jones. Beautiful play. Game 7-0 at the quickly in the first quarter. Then the Atlanta Falcons get a 3-and-out. Get the ball back from the San Francisco 49ers and proceed to go back down the field and score again on another strike in the corner of the end zone. Nice little catch and grab, drag the toe by Julio Jones, and they were able to jump up 14-0 in this game. They go out again, get a nice little field goal. Falcons jump out 17-0, kind of reminiscent of what they did with the Seattle Seahawks in the game. Then we started seeing the San Francisco 49ers kind of who after 3 drives, guys, listen, at the end of the first quarter, the Atlanta Falcons had almost 180 yards of offense at the end of the first quarter. The San Francisco 49ers had -1 at the end of the first quarter in the game. So obviously the defense was stepping up, doing their things. The offense was stepping up. Then we just saw a little bit some differences going on in the second quarter.
Yeah, once the second quarter started, it looked like maybe the lights started to come on for San Francisco offensively. They started getting the running game going a little bit. Kaepernick started hitting his receivers. It started to be what all Falcons fans dreaded, which was, oh no, here we go again. Same thing that happened against Seattle. They spot them 20 points. Seattle comes roaring back. They spot the 49ers 17. The 49ers come running back, and by the time it got to halftime, we had a ball game.
Well, we had a ball game. It was 24-14 at the half. And here's the thing. Here's one of the most notable things for me. Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones had 100 yards receiving and 1 touchdown in the first quarter. At the first half, he had 140 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns by the end of the first half. That's where you look at this team and say, and we know we can look back on the end of the game. He had only 182 yards, so he only had about 40 yards more receiving the remainder of the entire game at the end of the second half. Where did everything go wrong? Listen, they go into halftime, you're leading 24-14, you've got a little momentum, and you get shut out in the second half.
Yeah, and we do disagree on this a little bit because I think it was San Francisco's adjustments to the Falcons' vertical passing game attack, and you think it was more of the Falcons kind of compensating, kind of like a preemptive compensation
Let's
for
run
it.
the clock out.
Yeah, playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win. But I really think that San Francisco made some great adjustments to try to take away Julio Jones, who was having just a career day. But then you had the other Falcons that just weren't able to step up. Roddy White, of course, a couple of pass interference penalties that weren't called. But it just seemed like a different team in the second half.
But Roddy had over 100 yards receiving in this game.
Yeah,
Roddy,
Tony was on that one play.
Yeah, but Tony Gonzalez had almost about 80 yards receiving in this game. You almost had 3 receivers with over 100 yards. Matt Ryan had 397 yards passing.
They were relying almost entirely on the pass.
They had 80 yards, 81 yards if I'm not mistaken. They had 81 to San Francisco's 149 yards rushing in this game. That was a huge difference. We couldn't get anything going. Michael Turner sprains his ankle, I believe, at the beginning of the third quarter. He's not able to basically come out. You see Jason Snelling go out there and get a nice little rip-off for a run, nice little run as well by Jaquiz. But we were never able to dominate the defensive line and offensive line like San Francisco was. You and I talked off air a little bit earlier about how dominant kind of you compared them to the Dallas Cowboys. To the old Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, we talked a lot about them when Craig was sitting with us talking about the offensive line of San Fran, and they're just huge and strong and mobile. They can move you where they want to move you. They can also pass block, which means they can get back on their heels and pass block. I think they're very reminiscent of those offensive lines that the Cowboys had in the 90s. They're really very understated.
Well, I tell you right now, when you look back at this game, guys, you will honestly see, you'll see their running game. When they went to doing more of the read option, they had an opportunity to see gaping holes from their running backs. Their running backs, LaMichael James and Frank Gore, on their touchdown runs, did not get touched until they got into the end zone. It was pathetic. These were not 2 or 3 yard runs. These were 14, 15, and 18-yard runs into the end zone with gaping holes because you had a defensive end who's focusing so much on Colin Kaepernick, not worried about him having 181 yards on him like they did the week prior in the division championship game. Then you had the linebacker and Nicholas, who was so concerned about Vernon Davis, who had an unbelievable game. Vernon Davis going across the middle. So you left a gaping hole, and they took everybody except the running backs, and the running backs had a field day.
Yeah, they seemed to call the right plays at the right time when they knew that it was just almost like a guessing game.
Right.
Like you looked at the linebackers and they're thinking, okay, Colin Kaepernick, read option here, follow the quarterback. Oops, he's throwing it to Vernon Davis. And then you're looking at it, you're like, all right, shotgun pistol formation, 4 wide, watch out for Crabtree, Vernon Davis right across the middle, or Frank Gore, up the gut. So it was a guessing game, and the Falcons lost, but I think it all goes down to the dominance on San Fran's offensive and defensive line.
You tell me something, and I'm on the field at the game, during the game, and I'm watching Kaepernick do audibles. He could not hear. You could not hear in that game. I'm seeing Kaepernick on the line. He's going down the line.
He's doing this.
He's doing the hand signals. He's doing these.
Yeah, it was smart. That's what you have to do.
But my thing is this. I'm sitting there. I already figured it out.
You're like, last time he did this, they ran off tackle.
Last time he did that, they ran a draw play with the running back off tackle for 8 yards. So out of the shotgun, out of that pistol formation, okay, Why, as a defense, why are you not seeing this? If I'm on the sideline seeing this, why are you not seeing this?
It's hard to say. I mean, a lot of times these calls are like double bluffs, where you run the same signal and then you do like a second indicator, and it means that it's something else. Maybe they were just overthinking it, or maybe they just weren't picking up on it. It's hard to believe that the defensive coordinators and defensive players at that level are not picking up on it if people like me and you are, but that's why they play and we broadcast.
Right.
There were a couple times though that I was like, they're going to run that play, and they ran it. But
exactly.
it's whatever.
Well, listen, Vernon Davis had a field day as well. He had over 100 yards receiving in this game at the tight end position, and when you look at just how stupefied or befuddled Stephen Nicholas looked against this passing offense, and notably this tight end.
2 weeks in a row.
I was just about to ask you, did they take something from the Seattle game to San Francisco and take it and bring it in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, football scouting is all about film. And if you have teams that can scout you well by the film that they have on you, and you don't add any wrinkles, then they're going to beat you, because what they did, they saw what Zach Miller did for the Seahawks, and they did the same thing, and the Falcons didn't roll any coverage to it. They couldn't man up with the tight end, and it was just, like you said, a field day for Vernon Davis.
Well, I did want to mention the fact that I listened to sports talk radio, national coverage. I watched on television. A lot of people wanted to blame Matt Ryan for this loss because of the interception and because of the lost fumble.
That was key, though. Back-to-back possessions.
Right, and here's what I want to say. The interception wasn't Matt Ryan's fault. It was Roddy White's fault. Roddy fell down, and when he fell down, he was laying on the ground, and the defender was standing there where Roddy would have actually been between him and the ball, probably would have caught the ball on the 35-yard line of the 49ers. But the lost fumble to Alden Smith, you're talking about not looking at the ball.
Lack of concentration.
Lack of concentration. Trying to get down the field. You're in range to be able to put points on the board as well, and you lose that opportunity. And then you go down, and on a different possession, really the next to the last possession, they had an opportunity to hit Tony Gonzalez actually in the back of the end zone. Went to Roddy White. It falls short. It's just there were a lot of mistakes in this game that were made. The face mask, the personal foul with hitting Kaepernick in the head. A lot of penalties and a lot of things made, in this game.
Tip the fingers.
But when you look at it, the Falcons, it wasn't one thing that cost them this game. It was a culmination of different things, and part of it, I believe, more than anything, was taking their foot off the gas and not putting their foot on the throat of the San Francisco 49ers. We want to make sure you guys get an opportunity to stay in the discussion by following us on Twitter at SportsRapTV38 and send us your thoughts. Also, you can give us a call, 345-1500. That's 345-1500. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and Brandon and I are going to come back and do our analysis on the Baltimore-New England Patriots game. With a lot of words, a lot of talk going on in that game, and but a lot of big talk that was actually able to be upheld. Right here on the Sports Wrap TV 38. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR, your Middle Georgia sports leader. And again, joining me right now, Brandon Evans with Patriot Sports. He's going to be joining me. We just did our analysis on the NFC Championship game and our Atlanta Falcons losing 28-24 to the San Francisco 49ers for an opportunity to play in the Super Bowl. Now we're going to look over the AFC Championship game where the Baltimore Ravens and New England Patriots played a tough game. But first, I want to go into we're going to backtrack a little bit. At the Georgia Dome, pretty much after the game, there was a stabbing at the Georgia Dome in the parking lot at about 6:40 p.m. There finally was an arrest. And give us a little insight on that.
Well, yeah, there was an arrest, and now that the story's coming out that it wasn't arguing over like a Falcons fan and a 49ers fan, or even probably many of those Saints fans that were there, but it was an argument over food. So, I mean, what do you cook his burger and say, I wanted that medium rare? I don't know. But, violence is not necessarily a new thing to that part of Atlanta, so it's not surprising, especially the magnitude of that game. There were a lot of pissed off people. It could have been just the straw that broke the proverbial back where, it was just like, whatever. But, yeah, just sad that, good that nobody was killed, but I believe the person did get their throat cut, and it was in critical condition. So that's pretty pretty grisly crime that happened, but it was good to know that they did make an arrest.
And it says the 35-year-old person who was stabbed has not been identified yet. So I don't know how you authorities say he is in stable condition at Grady Hospital, obviously in Atlanta. But part of it, one of the big parts of the situation is the fact that neither one of these people even attended the game. They were basically, this was a tailgate party.
Yeah, but you know how things can get at tailgates. So
yeah, well, that's where all the good drinking and eating goes on out there. Well, I can't really talk because I think you had to almost.
Hey, we've seen it get rowdy out there before, so yeah, we know what it's like.
Yeah, Brandon had to keep me from jumping on a rowdy fan one day who comes up on me and just grabs me out of nowhere.
Hold my camera.
Just grabs me out of nowhere. But anyway, that's another story on another day. AFC Championship game. The Baltimore Ravens who win a miraculous game the week prior to the Denver Broncos. I don't think anybody obviously expected them, I believe, to beat the Broncos in that game. But
I think you picked them.
I did pick them, but that's all well and good. But I also picked Baltimore to win this game against New England. Now, I did pick last week. I picked the Falcons, I think, just because I wanted them to win. Because I think me and Craig were doing the mojo thing. I don't remember, but we were trying to get it done. But the biggest thing for me is a kind of a little bit of an end, hopefully an ending of a career for maybe even Ed Reed, but a guy like Ray Lewis who's trying to put a culmination on this on his career, 17-year career. They go out and basically it's a mano-a-mano game at the half. By the halftime, these two teams, Patriots come out. Actually, Baltimore scores first. Patriots come back. Patriots take another lead. Baltimore comes back, and it's 14-13 at the half.
Yeah, it was pretty much a slugfest. And if you look at the way the Ravens have got there, I think it's really the emergence of two players. I think on the offensive end, it's Flacco. You talk about, I know you've got some of the numbers about the way Flacco played, but that defense, that vaunted defense that everybody talks about with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, I tell you though, hardest hitter on that team might be Pollard. He was laying the wood out there, and he just had those New England receivers kind of, alligator arms across the middle a couple times. And I really just think that they went out and did exactly what Brendan Amadeo, I can't ever say his name correctly, right. But he said we got to go out there and punch him in the mouth, and that's what they did.
Impose your will, and that's one of the things that they did. Another standout who I obviously want to mention on that defense, who got an opportunity to play a lot during Ray Lewis's injury, Denard Ellaby from Georgia, University of Georgia, stand out, and now who stand out for the Baltimore Ravens. This guy has become the heir apparent to Ray Lewis at that middle linebacker position, and he's playing it lights out. He strikes fear in running backs and guys coming across the middle, and you could see it with Wes Welker on several different occasions. And how about Wes Welker's wife coming out on Facebook and whatnot, basically with the whole Ray Lewis, the murder
check his
situation.
Wikipedia page.
I mean, it's just it's kind of sad. This situation, and here's a guy who's trying to vie for a contract. He doesn't know whether they're going to bring him back next year.
Yeah, and Wes Welker, there's only been one other time that he's had kind of a media faux pas thing. When he did the whole Rex Ryan, we're nice little foot soldiers. We're just out there trying to put foot. He mentioned foot, I think, like 1,000 times in one interview. And it was right after the whole Rex Ryan foot fetish thing. But as a man, you don't want your wife to fight your battles for you. And as a professional athlete, I think it was maybe wrong place, wrong time. I mean, there are things to be said about what Ray Lewis did in the past. I mean, he was, I believe, he copped a plea and got obstruction of justice, but he was not convicted of murder. So, I mean, to call him a murderer or to say that he's involved in a murder, I mean, it's just more of a wrong place, wrong time thing. But it's a subjective thing. So everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just think that maybe Wes should have been like, "Hey, honey,
zip that. And just to touch back on that situation, guys, how about the fact that Ray Lewis turned state's evidence against his co-defendants, and
he had a lot more to lose.
But he turned state's evidence, which Michael Vick should have done. If Michael Vick had any sense, he would have done that early instead of later.
And Plaxico Burress should have copped a plea.
Well, how can you cop a plea about shooting yourself?
You could have admitted that he was not facing that kind of jail time. But anyway, the NFL workings.
Either way, the other two co-defendants basically got acquitted and they got off, and Ray actually was the only one that's had charges kind of hanging over him. So, but that's either here or there. Ray, I put it like this: unless it's a regular season game, Ray Lewis does not come back to Atlanta. I've been to six since that incident happened, and they played the Baltimore Ravens in 6 preseason games in Atlanta. Ray Lewis has not attended one of those games, so that just tells you one of those things. But,
and maybe Wes Welker knows that he won't have to play Ray Lewis anymore because, can you imagine that game next season? Be like, what'd your wife say about me? But now that Ray's retiring, so maybe Wes Welker was just like, whatever, honey. So,
and maybe we'll see an opportunity. Here's the thing. A lot of people put a lot of emphasis and focus on Ray Lewis and this team, Baltimore, winning a championship for Ray Lewis. Here's the thing. I think you've got more people in that locker room in Baltimore that are looking to win their first championship game.
Joe Flacco, Ray Rice,
Ed Reed, all these guys that came in after Terrell Suggs, all these guys that came in after Baltimore won that championship in 2000, excuse me. I think now you have more of those guys looking to win their first than worried about Ray winning his second.
Yeah, and it's hard to go inside a locker room and say what everybody's thinking. Obviously, Ray Lewis has been put up on this pedestal. He's this gigantic, iconic media figure and always has been. And that's what you either love or you hate about Ray Lewis. If you just follow his body of work on the football field, you have to respect. No matter what you say he's done on the field, you have to respect what he's done on the football field. Basically revolutionized the linebacker position.
You have to respect that, but Brandon, here's the thing. And people, I'm sorry, but I love Ray, what he does on the football field.
Too much showboating?
I love what he does on the football field, but guys, and I'm hoping our producer Brad Box obviously will pull some of this information for me and put it up there for you guys. The post-game antics that we see out of Ray Lewis are unbelievable. Listen, all the down on the middle of the field, you're in the middle of Gillette Stadium at the 50-yard line on your knees with 50 cameras around you. You've got your new shirts on that you are producing right now that you're trying to get out and get sold. That you take your shoulder pads and everything off as the game ends to let everybody see, so you can do that. You get in the shots with Sal Palantonio and guys like that after the game, and you want to fake cry and do all these other things. I'm sick of it.
Ray, you ever been in the moment?
Yeah, but it's the moment every moment.
It's his last ride.
Listen, I'm sorry.
I agree with you to some point. I think it's a little much.
Overboard.
It's a little much, but guess what? We still got another week before the Super Bowl, so you know that the media is just going to be just going on and on and on about Ray Lewis. If you're sick of it now, you'll definitely be sick of it by next Sunday.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I respect everything these guys have been doing. Listen, they shut down the New England Patriots in the second half of this football game. They did not score another point in the second half. But what about Joe Flacco? Here's a guy, 3 touchdowns. I want to ask this question. Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco, drafted the same year in the same draft in the same round. Joe Flacco has led his team to 3 AFC title games and now lead them to a Super Bowl. Matt Ryan has led his team to 1 playoff win. Flacco right now has 8. Actually, after this win, he's got 9 playoff wins right now as a professional. In his career, the same length of career where Matt Ryan has 1 playoff win, Joe Flacco has 9.
Yeah, the numbers don't argue, and I hate to say it because I'm a Matt Ryan fan, I'm a Falcons fan, but Matt Ryan has also had quite the defense. I'm sorry, Joe Flacco's had a little bit more defense than Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan just can be argued that he's had more offensive weapons. So they're compared, and they always will be compared because it's the same quarterback class. They were both taken early. They're both franchise quarterbacks, but right now Flacco definitely with the more impressive resume.
You would take Flacco over Ryan?
No. I still would take Ryan.
I'm taking Flacco, man. I like what Flacco does. I like what the guy's able to do.
He's got a huge arm.
He's got a huge arm, but the guy's almost 6'8" too, coming out of Delaware. So, guys, there it is. I'll wrap up 28-13 win for the New England of the Baltimore Ravens over the New England Patriots in Gillette Field, and a nice little opportunity, obviously, for Bill Belichick to snub CBS Sports and send Devin McCourty out at the end of that game. He's a sore loser. He's done that before. Shannon Sharp obviously took took account of that as well and basically called it out. Kudos to you, Shannon Sharp. I like what you said there as well. But guys, we'll wrap this this show up right here on the Sports Wrap TV 38 WRWR. We want to thank you guys for joining us each and every Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. right here on your sports leader TV 38 WRWR. For Craig Lawson, Brandon Evans, Brad Bostwick, and the great staff here at TV 38, we wish you guys a good evening. We'll see you guys next week. We're out of here.